Hello and welcome back to the Grumpy Historian's Book Reviews. The book I am reviewing today is entitled The Two Eleanors of Henry III by Darren Baker. It was published by Pen and Sword Books last year, 2019. It's a historical biography of two women named Eleanor, obviously. The titular Eleanors are Eleanor of Provence, who was the wife and queen of King Henry III of England, and Eleanor de Montfort, who was King Henry's sister, who married Simon de Montfort, Earl of Leicester, the famous nobleman, and he's known to history as a political reformer. I really enjoyed this book, and I actually learned a few things that I didn't already know. Now, there has been some criticism of this title. Some people said, it doesn't focus enough on the women, it focuses too much on their husbands and everything like that. That didn't bother me because, to be honest with you, it's nigh on impossible, I think, to write a book about a medieval woman without some reference to her family. I mean, most women were married unless they were nuns. Many had children, and a lot of the time, really, the records just don't exist for women by themselves, and they didn't really operate by themselves. People operated in family units. Family was important, especially for the nobility. Family connections were important. You very rarely find someone living on their own without some family nearby. So yeah, I don't think that's really a factor here, and honestly, if it focused just on the two Eleanors themselves without reference to their husbands and children, the book would be very thin indeed. So that wasn't a problem. The first half of the book's a bit sort of slow moving. It's talking about Henry and Eleanor's marriage, and also the years before their marriage. There was a few negotiations that fell flat there, but afterwards it gets a little bit more interesting, though of course this is not a novel, so the author is not required to entertain, he's informing. And the writing style, I enjoyed it overall. It's very good, very well referenced, and as I said, I actually learned something I didn't know, which is that Eleanor of Provence actually served as regent for a time when King Henry was abroad on campaign. Now, I found that particularly interesting because I didn't think that there were actually any female regents in England until the Tudor times, Catherine of Aragon being the first, or so I thought. A lot of what I'd read suggested that the English were quite antagonistic to the idea of a woman serving as regent. I know Margaret of Anjou got a bad deal because she wanted to become regent at one point, but it seems in the 13th century they were willing to accept Eleanor in that particular case. I think she was either pregnant at the time or had a couple of young children, which just shows you that she was trusted enough with political power to be left in that position. It's quite remarkable, really. So yes, overall I would give this book 4 out of 5 stars. Very enjoyable, informative read, especially if you're interested in 13th century English history, and if you don't know much about the events of this period. So obviously what it's talking about is Simon de Montfort and Henry III. Simon is sometimes credited with establishing Parliament. He didn't really. I mean, there was Parliament of sorts before then, though he's sometimes also credited with establishing the House of Commons again. The book goes into that in more detail. It does go through the events of the war and rebellion in which Simon rebelled against Henry III, and there were 2 major battles, the Battle of Lewes and Evesham. It follows the 2 Eleanors until their death and their legacy. Said before, very good book, very worth reading. It's actually Mr. Darren Baker's second title, I believe. He's also written a biography of Henry himself called The Great King England Never Knew It Had. Yes, but I should stop rambling on now because that's a different subject. And thanks to Pen and Sword Marketing for sending me a copy of this book. This didn't influence my review, and all these opinions are my own ones, and I shall be back soon with another book review.